Welcome to Social Media Crisis Management. I'm Diane Walter. I'm a digital strategist over at Bruner Advertising. We are a full-service advertising agency in Pittsburgh, and we've got the spinning sign out front. So people generally don't know who Bruner is until I talk about the sign that spins. So we work with a lot of different clients, both digitally and traditionally, and one of the biggest things that we always stress with all of our clients is if you are going to have a presence on social media, make sure that you have a social media crisis plan in place. Bad things often happen, and they happen from things that you would never imagine. Like for Oreo Cookie, they're doing their different pictures on social media with different events of the day, and they did a gay pride picture with a bunch of Oreos stacked in different colors, and there was a huge backlash for that. And you never know what's going to set somebody off, a cookie. Or for Burger King, someone standing in lettuce, taking a picture of it. So you just always want to make sure that you're prepared and that you have a plan in place. And a big surprising statistic is that over 50% of brands who are on social media don't ever respond to any of their consumer feedback on Facebook. And if you're going to have a presence on social media, you really want to be sure that you're going to be committed to conversing and taking part in the conversation, and also not talking as a brand and talking at people, but really being authentic and having this ongoing back and forth with people. So the biggest thing that you can do when you have a social media presence is just to listen, and that's the biggest key part of being a community manager for Facebook, for Twitter, for any social media presence that you have set up. Listening is key. There are a lot of different moderation tools that are available. You've got Sysomos, Radiant 6, and these are all different ways where you can tap into what people are saying about your brand in real time, see the sentiment, whether it's positive or negative, see if there's any key issues that are cropping up that you may or may not be aware of that are coming up in conjunction with your brand name, and that can help inform how you create your social media content plan and how you respond to different things online. So listening is huge. Bad things always happen on the weekends too, so it's really important that after hours and on the weekend, whether it's a member of your brand team or if you've got somebody on the agency managing your Facebook page or if you're outsourcing it, that somebody's still listening and checking in to see what's being said, because if something bad happens, you don't want that to be out there all weekend long, and a lot of times something will go wrong over the weekend and brands won't even address it until they come back into the office on Monday, and that's really, really bad. So. A couple examples of some things that people put into place. A social media triage chart. This is an example of a flow chart that folks can put into place where, for any kind of post or any kind of comment that you're getting on social media, you put together this schematic that tells everybody on your team how to respond. So if it's a positive post, are they saying anything that needs a response? Should we say anything yes, no? Are they asking a question? Is it a complaint that we should take offline? Are other people agreeing? And as things escalate and get more and more, as shit gets real, you want to make sure that you know who's going to answer, how it's going to be handled, and you want to make sure that you don't have just somebody in fear responding quickly and maybe saying the wrong thing. So this is one example of a flow chart that we recommend that anybody who has a social media presence has in place so that your team knows how you're going to respond. And this is another example. This is, I believe, for a healthcare company. So a little bit more incendiary for them when things crop up. I think this is for Pfizer Canada. If there are trolls, do they have the facts right, yes or no? If so, jump in and respond with the facts. Is it product related? Point them to the right direction. And it just tells all the different, in terms of the overall response considerations, you should be transparent, and that's the biggest thing, is to always just admit something is happening, or I agree with what you said, or I hear what you're saying. People want to know that you've heard what they're saying, and that's the big thing where people having their comments be ignored. That's the worst thing you could do, is do nothing. If something's happening, even if you don't know how to deal with it, the best thing to do is get on there and at least say, hey, I hear you, we're looking into this. Hold tight, and that way people know that you're at least acknowledging that something's happening. And timeliness is another huge consideration with crisis management. Just as soon as you're aware that something's happening, you should jump in and respond. And with the tone, you want to be conversational. You don't want to be very corporate and branded in how you're responding. And you want to hit the biggest influencers first. And we'll get more into that in terms of putting together your response plan, what channels you jump into first, and how you do that. This is a handy chart where, given the level of the severity of what's coming in, a lot of things you can just defer to your customer service staff. So if your client manufactures a bicycle, and if the bicycle falls apart, that's probably something you could just send to the customer service staff to respond to and to handle. They probably have canned responses for things like that. You need to start pulling in management when there's things like questions about policies with the company, or how the company might be taking a stance on a certain issue. So for the recent Chick-fil-A issue where they were supporting traditional marriage, that was something where you probably just don't want to let your customer service staff jump in on that. You want to get everybody involved and know what the right response is. You could get the management involved directly. The executive team often gets pulled in when things get really heavy. And just throughout the whole process, you're always monitoring just to see how you are shaping the conversation with your responses. So that all sounds good in theory, and that's what we tell people all the time, but in the end, stuff happens. And when you're sitting there and you see all hell's breaking loose on your page, what are the right ways to respond, and what should you be thinking about doing? So my advice to everyone is just stay calm and be a superhero, and be the person who within your organization is you have a plan, you've thought about what you're going to do, and so you can just step in and handle this. And feel free to ask questions. I am rewarding engagement today with a special prize, by the way, so ask questions or make comments or tell me I'm wrong. So the first thing to do is just acknowledge. And as soon as you're aware of any issue on your page, just jump on, whether it be via Twitter, via Facebook, say, we know that this is happening. Because generally when something crops up, a lot of chatter is going to start on your Facebook page, on your Twitter, where, hey, I hear that you just let a bunch of employees go during the Apple conference call that happened last week for Zynga. And they tried to do it under the radar and do it when a big industry event was happening. But a lot of people jumped on their social media page and said, hey, what gives? I want to know the story behind this. And then when you jump in and engage, you want to engage where the issue has cropped up. So one example was the Red Cross. This happens a lot. Does anybody in here manage a Twitter or Facebook account for a brand or for a company? And have you ever not switched back and forth between your own account when you're posting something maybe on the weekend, or if you've had a couple drinks, or it happens? Something happened just last week with a ticket company where somebody was very excited to be commencing with their weekend, and they're like, I'm getting out of this ticket. It was StubHub. And they posted a pretty disparaging remark about StubHub from StubHub instead of from their own account. So be really careful when you're using your Hootsuite or whatever you're using. So case in point, someone from the American Red Cross, hey, Brian found some more of the beer for this weekend and we're going to get slizzard. How did American Red Cross respond? The biggest thing was to respond first in the channel that it happened. So they jumped on Twitter immediately and said, hey, we deleted the tweet. We've confiscated the keys. So they did really well here, and this is kind of a really good case study of people who do it right, because they're also injecting some humor into the situation. Like, yeah, it was offensive, but it's nothing that people are going to hold against them, and so they can be a little bit more humorous with how they respond. And then you can see that a lot of people also retweeted their response because they were cool about it and because they had an authenticity to how they responded. So another big thing is, if you have done something wrong as a company, like, really be sorry, own up to it, and just that whole authenticity and like letting people know, I know that we screwed up here, because a lot of times people don't want to admit that they're wrong, and even companies make mistakes. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. This was for Pop Chips, and that's Ashton Dress Up. They did a campaign where they were saying that they were launching this dating site, and it was pretty offensive. It was a little bit racist, and it was just very rude and just very. They were trying to be edgy, and it didn't work. And a lot of times brands try to be edgy, and it doesn't work. And so there was a lot of backlash on Twitter. Hey, they pulled the ad. There was an outcry from Indian Americans. Some people thought it was funny. Some people didn't. Some people said they'll never eat Pop Chips again. And the way that Pot Chips responded was the CEO of the company jumped on all their social media channels and they posted this message. Hey, we heard your feedback and we appreciate you took your time to share your point of view, good or bad. And we tried to create a lighthearted parody. Didn't mean to offend anyone, and I take full responsibility and apologize. So we messed up. This was a dumb idea, and you can blame me. So that's a very good example of someone like really showing that they're sorry and or acting like they're sorry, but getting it out there and just showing that we've heard you and here's our message and let's move on. So the other big thing that you can do is put together a FAQ. It has all the information. Do I offend? No. I'm kidding.
Go right ahead. You're doing just fine.
Put together a FAQ for the crisis. So if it's a bigger issue and it's things that are continuing, like new events are evolving, like for the BP oil spill, you want to send them to a place that's going to have all the information so you don't have to keep repeating the facts across your Facebook and your Twitter and all your different channels. So a lot of things that you can do on that fact page are acknowledge the issue. Again, just let people know here's the story of what happened. Here's how we found out about it. Any photos or videos that back up what might have happened you want to put up there. So for Taco Bell, when there was the big issue where people were questioning the authenticity of their beef, they put up within their Facebook page, that was their fact where they sent everybody for all the latest information about what was happening. Who was alerted and how, specific actions taken. For Taco Bell, the CEO put together a video where he addressed the issue head on and he walked through the process for how their beef is sourced and walked people through the secret ingredients to let people know that they're not so secret. It's just a mix of spices. I just don't know if I would eat a Taco Bell. Steps taken to prevent the future occurrence, and then also a way to contact somebody real at the company, because a lot of times for bigger things, like for Chick-fil-A, people were so angry about what was happening at Chick-fil-A that they were harassing people in the drive-through, the cashiers. I mean, people, like every member of the company becomes a face for your brand at that point. And so if you give people a contact information for somebody higher up, you'll know that they're getting a consistent message. You'll know that they're talking to somebody who is actually qualified to give them the right response and that they're not harassing your employees who don't deserve to be harassed. So this is an example of what BP put up together after the oil spill. This settlement information, PDFs on just everything that happened, pulling in the Twitter feed. You always have to have a video from the guy on top talking about what they're doing to make it right. And they were very consistent about keeping that updated and sending people there to see what was the latest and greatest. So some examples of things that people have done really well, or maybe not so well, or just horrible. These are the good ones. KitchenAid. This was pretty recent with the debates a couple weeks ago. Someone from KitchenAid during the debate. I found following the Twitter feeds during the debate much more entertaining than watching the debates themselves. But everybody was kind of surprised when this popped up from KitchenAid, and there's the tweet. Not very nice. So pretty quickly, there was a response, and Cynthia Soldad is a brand manager at KitchenAid, and she jumped on. She was online all night addressing things, but she came on within minutes of this initial tweet going up. First, she jumped in on Twitter, since that's where it broke, and she had to position her message differently on Twitter than she did on Facebook, given the character counts and things like that. So first she said, here's who I am, and I'm going to be the voice of the brand for this. I want to apologize to the president, his family, and everyone else who was offended. Here's why it happened. This person won't be tweeting for us anymore, and I take full responsibility. So then she went on to individually reply to all the different people on Twitter who had posted remarks, good and bad. She reached out on Facebook. She also reached out proactively to a lot of the media outlets, including Mashable and Business Times and people like that, getting everybody on board so that she could deliver their version of what happened, and just very transparent and very immediate with their response. So once her apology tweet went out, a lot of people were embracing the way that KitchenAid handled it and said, clearly this was a personal tweet and you're a reputable brand, stuff happens. And they did get a lot of positive feedback. This was seen as a positive response to a social media crisis. And a ton of people retweeted, 629 as of that. the big feedback they did get on something they could have done a little bit better is that a lot of times when something is happening, you're moving so quickly to address it that you're not looking at the bigger picture. So it seems really weird to be getting an apology from a 5-quart orange artisan mixer. They probably should have put somebody's face there or the brand name or just something to make it a little bit more personal, because the whole time you're seeing these very apologetic posts next to the picture of the mixer, so it was a little bit weird. And then again, here's how they handled it on Facebook. She jumped on with the same message and got a lot of conversation going. There were thousands of comments, lots of shares, and just got out there and addressed it. And by the next day, it was old news. So people who don't handle it haven't handled things quite as well. This was what I referred to earlier. This is a Burger King employee. I really like fast food, but terrible things happen at fast food places. This Burger King employee he took a picture and he said, "This is where your lettuce comes from." And he's standing in the lettuce at Burger King. And he posted this on 4chan, and so people were able to actually use the location information to find where he worked. And within 15 minutes, Burger King corporate was able to track this guy down and relieve him of his job. But then so that was good, and they let people know, we found this guy, he's out. But what they didn't do as well is that while all this was happening within their Facebook page and their other channels, they didn't say anything. They kept, a lot of times people will you pre-schedule your posts that are going up. And so there was just, come try our curly fries and all these things going up that had nothing to do with the crisis while the crisis was happening. And they didn't go back and pull any of their pre-scheduled tweets or their updates. And so they ended up getting a lot of backlash because they tried to sweep it under the carpet and they didn't address it across all of their different channels. And this is a rogue ad that showed up in one of their restaurants, more feet than a McDonald's double cheeseburger. So people weren't happy with how they handled that crisis.
What is the reaction time on this you suggest, like within an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? What's the best way to do it?
I think just as soon as possible, even if you don't have an answer, even if they couldn't find who the guy was,
Right.
like as soon as you're aware that something's happening, at least get on there and say, we know something's happening. Like acknowledge as soon as you can. And that way it at least will, people will calm down. And
Okay, how about if it wasn't the company was hacked?
And that's the same thing. Even if it was hacked, the company's going to know about it pretty quickly. So just to get on and say, we're aware that something's happening and we're still looking into it, just to let people know that you're at least aware of the situation. Because generally when any kind of crisis happens, people will jump on your Facebook and your Twitter and say, what is this? I see this. Do you even know this is happening? So just going out there and saying, we know this is happening and we're looking into it, even if you have no idea what's happening or why it's happening, getting that out there is the first step to starting to calm people down. And then as things develop, to get on there in real time and
Because I think this is a very common incident about negativity in the company.
Yeah.
Especially with disgruntled employees that do that. So I'm not going to solve today then.
I'm sorry, it's before lunch too. I think that was the last bad food example. Then there are people who just don't care, right? And they're like, you know what? I don't care. Something bad happened, I don't care. So Chapstick, this happened last fall. They put out this ad, where do the lost chapsticks go? They're trying to be edgy and talk to a different audience. It really pissed people off, right? And so people went to their Facebook page and they said, hey, I don't like your new ad. Hey, I find your ad offensive. Hey, I think that you hate women and I hate you. And for days, Chapstick said nothing. They did nothing. And they got these really horrible, incendiary responses. Like, Chapstick, I'm never going to buy your project again. You're pigs. I hate you. I love Burt's Bees. They literally did nothing for days. And then they started going in and deleting comments, which is something you should never do. And a lot of people have their terms of use and their community guidelines where they'll allow you to delete comments if they'll say, it's always good to have a posting policy. And so we will delete your comment if you use foul language or if you're being a troll. They went in and just started deleting everything and just pointing back to their terms of service saying, well, everybody's saying everyone's being mean, but it's because they weren't responding to a crisis. So finally, after a week, this was their response, and it's really lame. We see not everyone likes our new ad. We didn't mean to offend anyone. Our fans and their voices are the heart of our new advertising campaign. And if you go back, Be heard at facebook.com/chapstick. That's BS, man. They didn't want to hear what people had to say. They didn't say a word. They didn't listen. They didn't respond. They were going through deleting people's comments. So we know we didn't get it right. We removed the image. And then this is how they went through and tried to cover their butt. We apologize if you felt like we were deleting your posts. But we do comply with Facebook guidelines, and if you use foul language, have repetitive messaging. You never answered me when I made my comment, so that's why I'm repeating it. Anything spam-like, multiple posts from a person in a short period of time, we're going to take it down. So at the end, they tried to deflect the blame back to the community, like, well, you guys weren't being nice, and so we took your comments down. So that's what we call an epic fail. And that happened long enough ago where I don't know how it damaged their market share or anything, but I know that whenever you talk about the really bad things that happen in social media, people always talk about Chapstick.
I thought that Facebook look at all their ads before they posted. Facebook?
Well, this wasn't a Facebook ad, though. This was a picture that they had posted. The brand posted a picture of their ad on their wall saying, hey, look at our cool new ad campaign. So they were sharing it with their community, not realizing that their community would find it offensive. Look.
This reminds me of the Barbara Streisand effect, where the more you try to put out, like get rid of the information online, the more that it's just going to spread like wildfire.
Oh yeah, and especially deleting comments is the worst. And I work with some clients who, when they don't know what to do, they just go in and delete and just pretend it's not happening. But that's only going to make people more mad. And things last forever online. Even if you posted something you regret and you take it down, it's out there forever. So best to just face it head on. And then Nestle is a final example of somebody who just didn't care and just messed up pretty bad. Nestle had Greenpeace had an issue with Nestle that they were using palm oil that was damaging the rainforest. And so Greenpeace does awesome things in terms of going against companies in a very concerted way. So they sent a lot of people to the Nestle Facebook page to leave comments about their questionable practices. And some of the people were even using altered versions of the Nestle logo to try to appear like they were posting as the brand. So the community manager for Nestle started going on and insulting people. Like, getting defensive is never a good idea. So this person said, I'd like to know if the person writing the comments for Nestle actually has backing from Nestle. Even a dumbass company like them would not get such an idiot to be their public voice. And he wrote back, hey, you missed the knot there, Helen. Come on, dude. He's like making them more mad. And this went back and forth where the community manager was a younger person, and it doesn't, young or old, none of that matters. Just have someone in charge who knows to be respectful, especially when people are angry. So the deleting comments and the angry back and forth went on for a couple days, and finally Nestle said, hey, we want to apologize, and I'm sorry I was rude. I'll stop being rude. But the damage was done, and again, it's an example of just very bad management of when something bad happens to make it worse, instead of just coming out and saying, yeah, we do source our oil from here, but here's what we're going to do differently. They really handled it just about as badly as you could, so a little bit lamentable there. So in the end, don't be scared, be prepared. It's, as long as when you're going in, if you put together a plan and you know that you're going to react in a certain way, if and when things happen, you'll have a much better chance of, when you're in the thick of it, because it's going to happen, you're going to know how to respond better and come out looking like a good case study instead of a bad one. So, do you guys have any questions right now? Yes?
Have you ever heard of Scott Stratton?
Yes.
His 2 books that he published, he focuses on a lot of what not to do. And his books, if anybody's ever read them, you learn from other people's mistakes, and you learn by him showing you what not to do.
And that's a lot of what it is too. I think a lot of the social media stuff is so new that people really are learning from seeing. You don't want to do it that way. You see the bad stuff. His Twitter handle is Unmarketing. He's a great guy to follow. He's really smart.
Can you repeat his name?
Scott Stratton.
And he's at Unmarketing. Have any of you guys had any kind of crisis that you've had to manage?
Well, a question of pricing. Let's say I have a truck delivered on Monday and I have my promotion done for the weekend. The truck is lost in the road on Sunday night, so I don't. So how do I just have to go up Monday morning, say there is a delay or something?
It's better to do that than to have people start coming to your page or coming to your Twitter account and saying, hey, where is my widget? It was supposed to be here today.
If you know, like, if you notice, you can do ahead of time and say there will be a delay one day.
Yeah, I mean, it's always better just to come out with it and be honest and set the new expectation if you know what it is, and that way you're going to stop a lot of people from coming on and complaining.
But you notice that the delivery time is not as bad as the price. If you have a price increase, that's, because some people already prepaid.
And people get mad about everything.
Right.
So you're never going to be able to stop people from complaining about your brand, and even the best brands in the world who do everything right.
Size,
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be something. There's always people who want to just start trouble and just get on there and just stir the turd, and so you're always going to have that.
Question. Right. How is this, response and way of conducting oneself on social media related to older stuff, just simpler ways of communicating? Because you seem to be using the terms that.
And it's all the same thing. I think that people see digital marketing as something that's different. I mean, I think the bad thing about digital marketing is that I love social media and I love the internet, but I grew up on the traditional side of advertising, and it's all the same. Like, social media right now is just another channel for doing things the way that you always did them and doing them well, having a good relationship with your customer, giving good service, trying to be, a real person behind the brand. So it's just another avenue to enable that. I think a lot of people, because digital communication allows you to be anonymous, people go on, they're jerks. People can be very rude and hide behind the computer. But I don't think it is any different. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to conduct your business online the same way that you would back in the day, and like the good old way of doing things is still the right way. You just have to think about that online. So many people I've worked with desperately we need a Pinterest, we need to be on Twitter, but they don't have anyone to manage it. They aren't prepared to get any resources to manage the community or to put together a content strategy to actually give people reason to come to these pages. People think that because it's there you have to do it. And it is an expectation from people that if you are selling something or if you're in a business, that you have these different channels where people can go and interact with you. But if you're not going to actually respond, then it's pointless and you shouldn't be there. So it's just committing to do the right thing in the channels that you're setting up.
What about taking the conversation offline? Or at what point, you kind of
when it starts to become about
then
when it starts to become about a person's specific beef, for example, I work with a restaurant chain, and a lot of people will come on and start complaining about. A lot of people are mad because they took pancakes off the menu, and that's something that affects everyone. But then some people are mad because they had to wait a long time for their food or they got the wrong drink. So whenever it becomes more specific, especially if it's coming in via Facebook or even Twitter. Twitter, you can just direct message them, assuming you guys like each other. Facebook, brands now have the ability to email someone directly if they initiate the conversation first. And so you can say, hey, send us a direct message and we'll get back to you and take care of your problem and make it right. And that's a great way to get all that stuff off your wall. And we've had a lot of success with some of our clients with diverting things, getting it off the wall, because a lot of times the things are just out there. Even if you have responded, people don't know that, and it just makes you look like you don't care.
How did you answer about taking pancakes out?
Some items are seasonal. People wanted that multi-grain pancake. It did come back next fall. I want to award to you, sir, the superhero cape for asking the most questions.
Oh.
And you can be the hero the next time something bad happens. It's also
Thank
ready
you.
for Halloween this week, even though people won't be able to trick or treat since the world's going to be ending, apparently. Much to the chagrin of the children.
the flowcharts were kind of useful and interesting. Are they available somewhere?
Yeah, I can.
Just
I know.
to take back to my team maybe?
Absolutely. I have cards up here, and if anyone wants a copy of my presentation, I have a bigger. I didn't think I would talk as fast as I did because I have a version that's 3 times as long that has a lot of very detailed information. So I can share that with you guys as well. So anybody who wants, you can either direct message me at Walter Rama on Twitter or grab my card and I'll send you.
Okay.
The flowcharts are nice.
If you have to get a legal entity involved, that costs more money.
It can. A lot of brands will already have legal counsel if you're a smaller business. There are organizations out there that provide internet-related law support to smaller businesses at a lower cost.
Because I would think right now, with this digital media, would be a different branch. You would have a legal, digital, social, specialized department that deal with that stuff, because as soon as you hit the bottom, basically it's going to go worldwide sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and the way that most companies get around, or at least they cover their bases by on Facebook putting in terms of use in place. So you'll see like rules of engagement or house rules on everybody's Facebook page. They'll have a custom tab that points to, here's the kind of conversation that we welcome. Here's the kind that's going to get you blocked or banned. And there you can set out your guidelines. People generally send those through their legal. If you don't have a legal department at your disposal, a lot of people will go to a bigger brand and just borrow theirs because terms are terms. But it's good. It sets the stage for here's what's going to get you in trouble. Here's how we're going to try to respond to you. And it's just a nice covering your bases.
Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy on crowdsourcing? And let's say your restaurant posts, say we have a brand new steak, and somebody comes in and starts bashing the brand about a bad steak that they had or something like that. From a community manager standpoint, let's just use Facebook as an example. Do you let that crowdsourcing go, or do you come in and try to twist it, or do you just let them vent?
And I think it depends. I mean, you get that all the time. For every 1,000 people who love a brand, there's always people who come on and even like the page. You don't have to like pages now to post, but you used to have to. And people would like the page just to play. It's always best to head them off by when somebody has a bad experience and they're writing about, if it's something specifically you can address, like, hey, I'm really sorry to hear that. Contact us at this number and we'll make it right. Or send us a direct message. Get in there and acknowledge it. But then some people let it go on. And then depending on what your terms of service is, you might have, after enough of them coming on and posting the same thing or just being obnoxious, especially if they start using bad language, then that probably under your terms of use, you could go through and block them from your page. But that's always the last resort. You just don't want to delete. It's always best to just head on and say, hey, we're really sorry this happened. How can we make it right? And they'll still be mad.
What's your philosophy on how many strikes until they're blocked?
I think that depends on the situation, because some people truly do like a brand but are having some issues, like with the service issue, like, hey, the last 2 times I got takeout from you, you forgot my rolls. And to that person, that's a really big deal. So if you know somebody's a fan of the brand and they're trying to work with you, I think, you let that go more, whereas when you know somebody's on there just causing trouble, you can feel better about blocking them more quick.
In your opinion, the company line, does it have a shelf life as far as when you, in regards to a cut and paste, the same thing when you're responding to a negative comment?
I think when you start doing that, that's where the whole authenticity, people say authenticity all the time, and it's a buzzword, it drives me crazy. But sound like a real person. I mean, at the end of the day, to your point, we are all people doing business with each other out in the world. Even if you're talking with somebody via a computer, they're still a person, and you're a person. And so even if you have a canned way that you're going to address something in terms of, I'm going to send you to customer service if it's X, like for that flow chart, depending on how you're going to address it, you can still personalize it by using the person's name and infusing some type of personality or using a more human tone. The way that Red Cross, they could have just gone out and said, oh, we deeply regret this tweet, and they could have been really old school and hardcore about it, but they were personable and they were likable. And I think when you talk to people, if I'm a brand and somebody has a problem, I do care, you would hope, and I want to make it right. So talk to them as a person, not as a brand. And so you can have that script and follow it, but do it in a way that's personalized. That's what we recommend. A lot of times, just sheer volume. Some people set up bots to respond to things, and I think you can tell when it turns people off. It's one thing if you have a bot responding to somebody with a pre-canned message, but you are actually getting back to them and making it right. Or you could just be responding and saying things and not doing anything, and then people are going to call you out on your page, so it's going to come back and get you.
Which company provides the service that you want to find out where this negative comment came?
There are...
and how much they cost, if you really want to find out.
There are some bigger paid services, Radian 6 is a big one that a lot of
Which
people
one
use.
is that?
Radian 6,
Okay, next one.
Radian,
RAD.
IAN, and then the number 6. And then there's also Sysomos.
Which one?
Sysomos. I'll email you.
Yeah, thank you.
But they're a little pricey. There are a lot of free tools that you can use just to go and see what people are saying. If you Google free conversation monitoring or free social media monitoring tools, it's going to send you a bunch of places where you can type in your brand name or type in your product name, and it'll give you a count of who's talking about you where, on Twitter, on Facebook, in different news articles, on YouTube, what people are saying, the relative sentiment, good or bad. So there are a lot of ways where even if you don't want to spend any money to do the monitoring, you can still use a free service to have a baseline idea of what people are saying about you.
So with this service, you pretty much says West Coast, and then you can probably nail down the town also?
You could, a lot of times you can get it right down to the person the different people who you should
With
go
a
out
free
and
service?
address. With a free service you can, especially if it's somebody who joined Twitter. A lot of people with customer service complaints tend to do things on Twitter, so then it's really easy to find them. The dead simple way to find out what people are saying about you on Twitter is type in your brand name or your company name on Twitter search and just see what's coming up, and that requires a lot of going through depending on what your volume of mentions is, but you can get pretty specific with who's saying what and address it that way. But social media listening for anybody who has a business or a brand, it's definitely your best investment to know what people are saying about you and to head it off before it becomes a crisis. Thank you. Thank you, guys. If anybody would like a copy of the presentation or anything, give me a shout or tweet me, and I'll send it your way. Okay.